Hey, it's David from Camper Woodworks, and today we're going to be making wood and epoxy coasters.
Okay, so the first step is I take my blank and I draw out a river. Something very simple, just whatever you want, whatever you feel like. Picture a river, imagine a river, be the river. And now I'm going to take my 4.5-inch grinder with a 40 grit flap disc and I'm going to start to remove the material. Turn it on and we're going to remove, oh come on, what are you doing? Get out of the way, jeez. As you can see here, I'm removing the material gently. I'm so glad that there's a clamp in the way. At some point I'll actually get these videos right, so it makes sense, but nice gentle removal of the material. You don't want to go too much. Now in this step, we're going to be mixing up the epoxy. I'm using an ice cast, ice thin material. It's good for, I believe it's good for a 1-inch pour. Dries relatively quick. So I'm mixing up 100 milliliters of material. It's a 1-to-1 mixture. Oh, look at that stuff. Is that ever thick? It's a 1-to-1 mixture. So if you're mixing up 100 milliliters, you put in 50 milliliters of part A and 50 milliliters of part B, and then you mix. So right now I've just put in 50 milliliters of part A and then sealing up the container again, grabbing the part B, and I'm going to pour 50 milliliters of that into it. Now the consistency on these is quite different. Part A, you could see, was really quite thick. Part B, as you can see from the pour, is a lot thinner material, so be careful. You don't want to pour out with the same speed as you think that you did with part A, otherwise you're going to way overfill it and then you're just going to be throwing out all kinds of material. So now I'm grabbing my wonderful popsicle stick and I'm going to start mixing. Okay, so now I'm adding my pigment and I'm going to mix that all up to a nice red color. Really quite nice. And here's everyone's favorite part, pouring the epoxy. Oh, look at that. Kind of looks like ketchup. I'm not pouring ketchup into it, but it kind of looks like ketchup. It has the consistency of ketchup. I don't recommend trying it. I mean, if you want to try it, go ahead, but I don't recommend it. So there we are, we're pouring the epoxy. If it overfills, that's okay. You kind of want it to be proud of the workpiece, because if it's too shallow, then, I mean, either way you're going to have to sand it, so sanding the wood might be easier than sanding the epoxy. There we go, she's filled. And now we're using a plumber's torch to remove some of the air bubbles. Not sure what this guy is talking about, who he's talking to, but I don't know. Just wave it over top, remove any of the air bubbles that come. You'll have to do this several times. And now after the epoxy is cured, run it through your planer if you have a planer. I know this is like the most awkward setup you've ever seen. I'm working on it. But I take nice shallow passes with the planer, take off a 32nd to a 16th of material, shallow passes, multiple passes to remove off the epoxy until I get it to the level that I want. And just keep doing that. And now it's everybody's favorite time, sanding. And you sand and sand. I'm using 120 grit sandpaper. The planer took care of most of the work, so I'm just removing all the tool marks. Ah, yes, fun times. Sanding Isn't sanding great? It's very therapeutic. Back and forth and back and forth. Okay, so after you're done sanding, I'm going to start to cut them into blanks. I've got a bump stop made up, so we'll keep it at 3.5 inches. Should be fairly consistent at that, and we're going to chop them into into the blanks that we need. It'd be a great idea if I actually plug the saw in. Yeah, there we go. There's a red light. Okay, the saw is going to work. And we're going to try this again. Fire it up. Watch your fingers. I'm in the way, I know. God, I'm terrible at these videos. You get the gist of what's going on. There we go. We cut the piece. Keep your eye on that stop. Did you see it move? Oh, that was hilarious. So guess what's going to happen? That stop moved. It's no longer set at 3.5. Watch it again. Ready? If the camera would stay in focus. That stop didn't move. It gets even better. Just wait. Now we're on our final piece. Yep, that piece is over 1/4 inch short. Can't cut it. Can't even trim it. Put it on the pile. Now, the next step after cutting the blanks is wet sanding. I'm just using a 600 grit material, trying to forget about the fact that I have a short piece, and I'm wet sanding all of my tears away. And now the final step is just adding a finish. I'm just using a min-wax polyurethane. It's just a clear satin finish. You can use whatever you want. You can use a gloss, you can use a semi-gloss, you can use a tung oil, you can use a lacquer. You can spit on it and call it done if you want. It's totally up to you. It's your coaster. I'm just putting on nice thin brush strokes and trying to get everything all sealed. And what the final product looks like. Nice and shiny, beautiful. Doesn't matter if they're not all the same size. I don't care. I'm happy with it. For you guys, make them all the same size.
Alright, thanks for watching. If you guys liked what you saw, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button down below. I would really appreciate it. That way I can start making more videos. If you want to leave a comment, please feel free to leave a comment. I would really appreciate it. Thanks, guys.